And good evening and welcome to the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast. Back at it here on a Tuesday, June 7th, as we stream live. If you're catching us via the podcast later on, remember we do stream live Tuesday nights, right now every other Tuesday, very soon back to every Tuesday. But Tuesday nights, 9 p.m. Central. You can catch us on the Twitch, the YouTube, the Facebook, and even on the Twitter. You can comment on YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook with us, as always, Jeff Chadiha from the NFL Network, NFL.com. Eric Eager from Pro Football Focus, PFF.com. My name is Soren Petro from Sports Radio 810 WHB. Time to buy or sell on some of the themes that are out there about these Kansas City Chiefs. Let's start with theme number one, Jeff. Chiefs offense will continue to be elite without Tyreek Hill. This is a topic I had on my radio show a little bit about the receiver part of it, but Tyreek Hill's all over the news, making a lot of comments about his podcast. Is the Chiefs offense going to be elite without the elite podcaster, Tyreek Hill?
Well, I thought he was in town basically trying to clarify things, wasn't he? At some football camp over the weekend.
He had a football camp that had 700 kids at it at a cost of $350 a kid. Don't know if there was a charity involved, but it wasn't free. That's for sure.
All right. I will sell on this. And by elite, elite to me is top 5. I think there'll be a top 10 offense. I think without Tyreek Hill, without that explosiveness, I don't see, and with the unknowns at the receiver position, yeah, they have talent in the room, but they also have players who've been banged up, players who haven't really established themselves in the NFL just yet. It's a weird mix. It's a weird mix. So it's hard for me, as great as Patrick Mahomes is, as great as Andy Reid is, there will always be a good offense, but to be a special offense, to be a dominant offense, to be a top 5 offense in the NFL, it's hard for me to buy into it right now. I think they will be much more of what we saw in the second half of the season, efficient, moving the chains, running the ball more, but certainly not what we saw in 2019 or 2020.
I guess that's one of the things we should establish here. When you say elite, you said top 5. Is top 5 what constitutes elite in your mind?
That's elite for me. That means like you are like rolling out 30-point games, hitting 40, maybe a couple of times in a season. Elite is what they were in 2019, 2020, 2018. 2018 is the bar. So they're not going to be anywhere close to that as far as what I've seen.
That's a pretty high bar, right? That was a year that I think we all would agree was driven by the fact that their defense was awful. We've got a number of different things that we're going to talk about on the defensive side of the ball. How about for you, Eric? Even without Tyreek Hill, the Kansas City Chiefs offense will be elite.
I think they will be. Here's a few reasons why. I think their offensive line, it does look like the Orlando Brown thing's going to get resolved. He got an agent. He's finally recovered. I got to get this joke in one time a show. He finally recovered from Pat's wedding. He looks good now.
Now, is it elite top 5 for you? Is it the same definition for you? Okay.
Yeah, and I think like we've gotten so desensitized to how good the quarterback is. Like they were in terms of some metrics last year, they were top 5, expected points and stuff like that. And I think they add a new dimension this year. I think that they saw last season the strength of the offensive line, the ability for that offensive line to run block, and the inability, whether it was Clyde being hurt, it sounded like Clyde had like a back injury that was kind of weird, or just like a guy like Darrell Williams, really good pass protector, really good guy for the quarterback, but not an explosive player. They go ahead and get him out of there and go with Ronald Jones. So I'm buying into Ronald Jones as a runner. I'm buying into his ability, a former 1,000-yard-ish back for a Super Bowl winning team on the ground. And I'm buying into MVS, Juju, Sky Moore, McCole Hardman, and Travis Kelce to go along with Patrick Mahomes. And I also think there's a motivational piece there that, there's these guys who are kind of, as Eric Bieniemy would say, competitive pricks like Patrick Mahomes, like Aaron Rodgers, who like to be able to prove people wrong, who doubt them. And for the Packers, it was drafting Jordan Love. For the Chiefs, it's trading Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, I'm buying on this. I don't like. Here's what I would ask Jeff: Are you selling on it just because of Tyreek Hill being gone? Or is there something else about the offense that you don't like?
It's more the pieces around him. I think I saw it was. I'm not trying to sit here and quote who's the guy on ESPN who was the Jets. Mike Tannenbaum put on a list of tiers of supporting cast. He had the Chiefs in the tier 3 supporting cast wise, and so I to me it's just more the unknowns. It's hard for me to sit here and say Marquez Valdez-Scantling is going to go Marquez. I get it wrong every time. It's going to go.
He has 1,100 yards and 8 touchdowns. We'll get it right.
Yeah, exactly. But he's never had more than 40 catches in a season.
Right.
I mean, Juju has been banged up. McCole Hardman, we know what he's been here, and Sky Moore is a rookie. So you're talking about your 4 best receivers, your top 4 receivers, having a lot of question marks. And so as great as a quarterback can be, look, there were years when Tom Brady didn't have an elite offense. There was years when Green Bay didn't have an elite offense with Aaron Rodgers. It happens. I'm just saying that when you have an elite offense, it's usually because you stack the deck and you've got weapons all over the place that are just top tier. What they had in 2018.
But do you guys think, here's my question I have. Do you think that 2021 was the nadir of the whole thing? Like, do we think 2021 was the come to Jesus moment for this offense where there were long stretches of the year? You think of the Giants game. Well, you think of the Titans game, but I even think of games they won. The Giants game, the Packers game, the Dallas Cowboys game, the Denver game. Stretches of play where their offense was not good, not explosive. Yeah. They would score the first drive of the game and then you'd see nothing else the rest of the game really. And I agree with you, Jeff. I mean 2013 comes to my mind when I think about the Patriots, right? Where Brady had an 87 passer rating and that team still made the AFC title game, but you're right, it wasn't an elite offense. But don't we think that this last year was the year where they were like, we gotta shape up a little bit. And part of that shaping up was losing Tyreek Hill, which I think is a little bit counterintuitive, but it does, to me, I think, signal an understanding of what's going on.
I will say this. Here's my internal debate. I am from a changing of the talent aspect of Tyreek Hill going to the Miami Dolphins and then bringing in, Valdez-Scantling, Smith-Schuster, Sky Moore, Ronald Jones. I don't think the Chiefs have backed up the bus on talent. I don't, because I think you're better off having 3 good receivers than 1 great receiver. I think being able to find the corner to pick on and go at him with a good receiver is better than having 1 great guy and trying to beat double coverage or a true shutdown corner. So talent-wise, I'm not going to push that it's way better, but I'm not when I make my decision on this, it's not based upon, okay, they're not as talented as they were, they can't do as much, or the whole linchpin of the offense was Tyreek Hill, and without him they can't be explosive. I don't think that's the case. We've seen them be explosive without him when he's been out, albeit in short.
I was going to say, not the same level.
But I also think that that's part of the issue, right? When you are, and we've seen this in Green Bay too, if you are so dependent on 1 or 2 players, the way the Chiefs were, right, that's more fragile than having a system where, and it was always the point that I tried to make about Hill, which was he's not your deep threat anymore, but you need him. You need a deep threat then, right? Because if he's going to be the underneath guy and his average depth of target went down 2.5 yards last year, yards after the catch went down 1.5 yards. But you're paying him a lot of money. You have to get him the targets, right? There isn't a player when you pay Juju effectively 1 year, $3 million. When you pay Marquez Valdez-Scantling 2 years, $20 million effectively. McCole Hardman's on year 4 of a prove-it deal, and Sky Moore's a second-round pick. If one of those players goes through a game and has 0 catches for 0 yards and they win, you hear nothing, right? When when Devontae Adams went through a game with no catches, no yards, when Tyreek Hill went through a game, no catches, no yards, you heard something. It was always, that was always the tail risk of having a great running back too, where, if you're paying the running back, what Adrian Peterson was making in Minnesota or something, the flow of the offense was certainly the most important thing, but the second most important thing was getting that guy 20 carries, right? And I think when you have an offense where no one is earmarked, the 10 targets, I think you have a little bit of anti-fragility there.
I will say this. How many offensive players have a Super Bowl ring?
On this team?
On this team right now. How many of them are on the championship team in 2019?
Oh, what? 2?
They cut Austin Ryder again, right? So then, so it's
Kelce. Yeah, 3. Hardman,
Kelce, Hardman, Mahomes.
They were
Blake Bell.
Blake Bell is back. That's number 4.
You're going too deep into the roster for me, Eric. I stopped at the starters.
and there's but you're right. 3 starters. And then the fourth is Blake Bell, and the 5th is Andrew Wiley, who was a backup on the team.
Right.
That's it.
And Nick Allegretti was on the team, but I mean, but starters, you're talking about 2 guys.
Starters, we're talking about 2 that
McColl's a backup on this team right now. Right?
McColl was kind of the next wideout up. But to that point, I mean, I think they are hungrier. And somebody asked the question, I think it was Aaron, asked the question, has anybody, he said, yeah, which is something I talked about. I talked about it on Eric and George's podcast, the PFF forecast. You know, when everybody was all excited about them bringing everybody back, he says, has that ever worked, right? We've watched everybody try to do it. Bucks did it last year. Rams are trying to do it again.
It worked for Golden State.
Different sport.
Well, you said any sport.
Well, yes. Yeah. No, but yes, you are accurate in your answer. Saying this case,
the late 90s Yankees. Like that. Yeah. But football, I mean, it's the same statistic as saying the last time a league MVP won the Super Bowl, it was 1999. Like we've been an entire century, without that happening. And it's because the best team doesn't always win the Super Bowl, right? Or rarely does, actually. I think that's like the thing, I think the Chiefs are built right now to be in it. Now, they're not necessarily built to win it, which is fine given the situation that they're in.
Well, and usually elite offenses don't win championships. That's been proven too. Most oftentimes in this league of the last 20 years, record-breaking offenses haven't won championships. I don't think it's a bad
record-breaking ones. You need a good offense, but record-breaking ones, like I think, the best, right. Like, the league MVP is usually a QB.
The 2 most dominant offenses of the last 20 years both played in the Super Bowl. Brady's undefeated Patriot team lost in a Super Bowl, and Peyton Manning's Broncos team lost to the Seahawks. But good offenses are winning Super Bowls, right?
But they're not winning championships. That's what I mean. They're not winning championships. I think there's a lot of great offenses that win championships.
But I think that's the battery in backwards. You use the term record breaking. It's like I think
that's elite to me.
Yeah. Okay. Well, but the devil not elite. I'll find there are plenty of top 5 if that's going to be your definition. Top 5 offenses that are winning. Right. To say that being a top 5 offense is a negative is wrong. What I think that the problem is if you say record breaking, or oftentimes the teams that do man the top 5 offensively, we're talking about a statistical measure. And those statistics are driven as much by a piss poor defense as they are the actual caliber and quality of offense. And I think the 2018 Chiefs, had a god awful defense that they were just racing up and down the field. So I think to make it sound like if you make your offense too good, you've mismanaged your team is erroneous. I think if you make your offense really good and your defense can't stop anything, you're probably going to put up really big offensive statistics. I mean, I think the idea that the number 1 offense is maybe more of a flawed team. Maybe the offensively on average isn't any better than the 5th or 6th or 7th or 8th best offense. It's just the one with the worst defense is real. But to this question about do you buy that this team that it'll be elite? That's what I struggle with, right? Like I think they're as good, but elite by the definition of top 5, I wouldn't bet money on that. Yeah. But will it be elite by my category, which is when they need to score, they will score. When they get into a second half against the Bengals, they'll be more equipped to score. When they get to the goal line, they'll be more equipped to punch it across. They'll be more equipped to throw it across because they've got big receivers. Yes. I think I think Ronald Jones as another back, I think they're going to change and be more physical as far as the running game goes. Statistically speaking, I think the answer is probably no. I'm going to buy on the topic because I think they're going to be a more diverse offense that will score when it needs to. But I think I think I've got a fallback of when we get to some of the defensive questions, I'm not sold on the defense being good. And if the defense does suck, then I think that you get the throttle pushed down, I just watched Top Gun, push the
Nice.
throttle forward. And I think this offense then will pile up top 5. If the defense blows, they will be top 5 statistically speaking. No problem, in my opinion. If the defense is good, I think they will gear down, but be just as good of an offense, just won't statistically flex the muscle. I think by my definition, I've got 2 chances. By yours, I think more likely that if they're a better team, they're 6th or 7th or 8th or 9th, and they fall short of what you're describing, Jeff.
Yeah, I would say I think Cameron Fletcher nailed it. I think it's not a better offense, but it's a more diverse offense. Yeah. And whether you see that as a strength or not is, I guess, beauty's in the eye of the beholder there.
Yeah, I agree. All right, Patrick Mahomes will be top 3 in the MVP voting. Eric, why don't you lead with this one?
Yeah, I think so. Like the thing is, with the MVP is a narrative. The MVP is a narrative-driven reward, right? The year that Patrick won the MVP, he was not the favorite going in. He sniped Drew Brees from behind in that award, and the Chiefs went over their season win total by what was it like? That win total was 8.5. They went over by 3.5 wins. 19, 20, 21, they were the top dog, and you're never really going to do a good job of meeting expectations when you're the top dog. And hence, it was Aaron Rodgers coming from nowhere in 20. Aaron Rodgers, the funny part about the Aaron Rodgers thing in 2021 was they got beat like a drum in week 1 against New Orleans, and he played pretty poorly. And then you had the comeback for them in the season. And that was really part of the whole narrative to get him that award. So I think Patrick Mahomes will be in the mix there. And again, for me, it's because this is a team that is no longer favored, to do much of anything this year. And so when he emerges, that will be, something that I think, comes as a surprise to everybody.
I'll take second shot at it. We'll just rotate through each one, which I hate because now I've got to take Juju first, which I don't want. Which is I should have thought this through a little bit better about how we're going to do it. All right, so wait a minute. I'm tracking this so we can go back. Where are you, Eric? You're buying on this?
Yes, I'm buying. I'm buying on both so far. I'm a buyer of the Chiefs.
Yeah, and stunningly, here I sit right next to you, like just an absolute, slobbering fanboy. Yes, I buy it. I buy for the top 3, and I'll echo what Eric said about the narrative, and to go back about the, no league MVPs won since 1999. I think that's one partially coincidental. Again, there were MVPs that were there that were, in the game, which is the hardest part to actually getting. Getting the championship is getting to the game. That's the harder part than just winning the game. You're down to 1 game when you get to the game, and I think when you've got one guy that then has to win 3 or 4 games, the MVP is not supposed to win it very often. The math, Eric, you can attest, will say that he's not supposed to win it very often. But what it is a circumstance, right? Like if you're supposed to be good, it's harder to win the MVP, right? The back-to-back thing is harder. MVP voters are looking for what's next, what's new. And it usually goes through about 3 or 4 different leaders as the year goes on. About week 5 or 6, somebody emerges. A couple years ago, Russell Wilson had the award in his pocket, only to see somebody else grab it and take it later. I think that, top 5 for sure, which we kicked around the idea of making it top 5. For sure, I think he's top 5 in the MVP because not as much as expected. I think he's going to hang 40 touchdowns. He's going to do it without Tyreek Hill, which boosts the narrative around him. And yes, I think he will be top 3 in the MVP voting and has an excellent chance to get a second MVP this year.
Wow. You guys are predictable. I think he'll start the year.
Wait a minute. Are you predictable? Because I'm going to assume you're selling.
I'm selling, but for reasons that have nothing to do with Patrick Mahomes, the player, more so to do with the circumstances. One, I think it's a crowded field. I think you're going to have at least 6 or 7 guys who have a legitimate chance to be in the conversation, given the way teams have stacked their rosters and the buzz, especially in the AFC around some teams. I think this is Josh Allen's award to lose. I think that they will try to do everything possible to give him the award because Buffalo is the flavor of the month right now. And I think that's what's that?
Top 3. Josh Allen can win the award.
Well, then when you have Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers in the mix, that means Mahomes ends up at best 4th. So if it goes the way I think it will go, the way isn't Allen favorite to win the MVP right now?
He is.
Odds maker. Yeah. So I'm thinking, and you're not even counting the Justin Herberts and who's the guy? Matthew Stafford, the guys who get votes out of nowhere. Last year, Cooper Kupp got a vote. Now he had a great year.
I'm completely fine with you selling because again, the math of it, right? Like we're top 5, it gets easier. At top 3, we make it pretty hard. So like I can't get down on you and say, oh, you're hating because just you're right. There's a lot of competition out there for it. Injuries can knock anyone out. Like taking any one guy, like we can pick any one other guy and say, Josh Allen. I'll take no because the math, he's not even money to win it. What is he like 5-1, 7-1, something like that?
Hey, he's still the favorite, right?
He's still the favorite. 7-1 means 7 out of 8 times he doesn't win it.
Yeah. Well, and we just argued the whole point about the offense, running the ball more, being. I don't want to say conservative. Conservative is not the right word. I think more efficient. I don't think they're going to have as many splash plays as they got when Tyreek Hill was the ball of the offense, which does affect highlight voting. And I think the underrated factor in all of this is that when you're an MVP candidate, you ultimately get judged against your last MVP season. And so he's always, for better or for worse, going to be judged against 50 touchdowns, 5,000 yards. I mean, the reason Aaron Rodgers has won it back-to-back because he's put up comparable numbers in back-to-back seasons.
Well, that's not the season he's trying to match now. So I don't think
I'm talking about Mahomes has the match. If Mahomes doesn't throw for 40 touchdowns, he hasn't thrown for 4 touchdowns since 50 touchdown season, right?
No, I guess playoffs. I always let me look here.
He has not thrown for 40 yet. He has not thrown 40, but 40 will generally get you there.
So you're asking me to do something he hasn't done in the last 4 years.
It's a competitive field. I'm looking up here. The year Aaron Rodgers won his first MVP, he threw for 45 touchdowns and 9 interceptions. He won his next one with 38-5, so 7 less touchdowns. He won his third one with 40-7, right? So 5 less than his best. And then the last 2 years, he's been 48-5, and he followed that up with 37-4.
Wow. So he's right around 40. I mean, he's basically within 7 touchdown passes.
I grant you, Mahomes is going to need to get to 40, right?
But you're talking.
We're 40-5 probably.
We're all litigating right now. Essentially, what we're all litigating the fact that Mahomes wasn't as good last year, and I think like all of us will agree to that. But at the same time, like the last 2 years, it's 4,700 yards and more than 37 touchdowns, right? So we're saying, can he get better than that? And I think that is correlated with the first answer, which Jeff was no on and we were yes on, right? Which is, can Mahomes get better? I think he can. I understand the point of view that says he can't, right?
Well, I'll say this. Aaron Rodgers won his second MVP in 2014. He had 38 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, and had a 78.3 QBR. Patrick Mahomes in 2020 had 38 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, and a 78.1 QBR. That season's good enough to win an MVP depending upon what's going on around you in the league.
And he finished third, right?
And he finished third.
Who was second?
I don't know. I just have Mahomes.
His name is Josh Allen.
Josh Allen?
But expectations are high for Allen, right? Like
I agree. I don't think I don't know if he's going to win it, but I think they're going to try anything possible to give it to him.
Yeah, I think, and look, like I think MVP fatigue is real. Brady's thrown 40 touchdowns the last 2 years, and led the league in yards and threw the ball 200 times more than Aaron Rodgers. Like he was the MVP last year. If you think about how much the Bucs leaned on him versus like the Packers, frankly leaned on Adams and their running backs more. But we just don't with Rodgers. We're going to run. Rodgers is not winning the MVP this year. We're gone are the days where a guy can win it 3 years in a row. Yeah. The only times when Favre and Manning did it, it was because they were the only good quarterbacks in the league.
Yeah. And I also think you're underestimating the narrative of no Tyreek Hill. If he puts up those numbers, which I think
that would help him. That would help him. I don't think he gets it without.
But again, if you believe that the numbers are going to be there, which I do, which you mentioned the low interception totals. The next couple of years, that's what he had: 26-5, and 38-6. I mean, the interception numbers are down. Last year was a bad year for him by interception standards. And we know that 7 of them were catchable balls. Like, so there's some.
A lot of them were dropped by Tyreek Hill.
Oh, Eric's the math guy here. How are they going to run the ball more and have him get 40 touchdown passes?
Well, I don't think he might not put up that many yards, right? It might be one of those things between the 20s and Ronald Jones gets 1,000 yards or something. But I mean, to the point that you're asking, like Aaron Rodgers last season threw for 4,100 yards. He started one less game than Mahomes did. Be threw for 700 less yards. But he
didn't play the last game either, right? He didn't play the last game.
Yeah, he missed a game and a half. But that's not, his volume stats were not great he threw the touchdowns and they won the games. If the Chiefs win 13 games and Mahomes throws 40 touchdowns, I don't think people are going to be like, oh, but did he throw for 5,000 yards?
Yeah.
I just don't think that's going to come into play.
And he also had big moments in big games against big opponents, right? I mean, he beat the Rams, he beat the Cardinals on the road in that big Thursday night. Those are the kind of games that ultimately decide.
Yeah. And Patrick, to the point, last season there were 3 other AFC division winners, and Patrick Mahomes lost all three games. Bengals, Titans, Bills. They lost all those games in the regular season. They lost to the Ravens too. Like all the elite teams in the AFC, the Chiefs were unable to get a W against. And that's actually, I mean, if that turns around, we saw that in 2020. They beat every good team in football in 2020 on the road. Like I think that narrative could change, and they could very well be what we want them to be.
All right, let's get to JujuSmith-Schuster as the top receiver on the Chiefs. How are we defining top receiver on the Chiefs? Most yards, most touchdowns,
most reception. After we're moving Travis Kelce from this, so best wide receiver.
This is about wide receivers. Yeah. Most catches, most touchdowns. Most catches.
I'll go catches.
I'm gonna make a note there.
Catches and targets if you want to.
Most catches in, so it could go 2 ways. There's a couple of ways to look at it. It's the health thing that bothers me on this. I don't know who it's going to be, but I don't know that it matters, right? Like I think the depth of receiver, I'll go back to what I said at the beginning. I don't know who it's going to be. I'm going to sell on this one just because I'm looking at this from like a betting perspective. I'm not rolling that. I wouldn't buy any one of them. Somebody's going to be it, but I wouldn't buy any one of them. There's a reason to ding them all. Health being a big one on Juju. So no, I will sell on this, but with the note that I would sell on all of them. There's nobody that I would buy because I don't know who it's going to be. I don't know who Mahomes is going to buddy up to. I think there's a compelling case to make for Smith-Schuster if he's healthy. He becomes the and maybe even at the cost of Travis Kelce. He takes a lot of those Travis Kelce targets away, and maybe Kelce's numbers don't look as good. But no, I will sell on this, Jeff.
I'm buying. He's the most accomplished of the group. MVS, I don't know. I'll believe it when I see it. He's got some skills that will accentuate this offense, but I think he's a little bit overrated at this point. I think he's, because he came out of Green Bay, because he's a fast guy, he's a big guy, and all that stuff. But the production isn't there yet. And so JujuSmith-Schuster, what's that?
I mean, MVS averaged 11 yards a target and had 6 touchdowns and 700 yards like 2 years ago when he was healthy. Like I feel like that's like production.
But it is. But health is a big one. Although the Chiefs keep saying he's got more to offer than was used in Green Bay. But I will say here's what I'd be interested in knowing. If it's not, because I think you like this topic, and so I think you had it wanting to flex some Juju muscle here, right? To be pro Juju.
No, I was trying to find. Actually, I had a Hardman topic first.
Okay.
But I think that was like low hanging fruit.
Yeah, right.
A little more.
So
debatable.
With Juju, if he plays in 7 games, then who would you say is the leading receiver?
Well, if he played in 7 games,
I'm just curious of your pecking order.
Man, it's probably MVS, just because I don't know if Hardman.
That's good.
How the offense look. If you were saying Hardman was going to do what Tyreek Hill did, played that role, I would buy more into that. But just the way they're moving things around, I don't even know what his role is going to be, how they will utilize him. Right. And so I would probably guess it'd be more balls for MVS. But again, if you're asking me to pick between who I think is going to have a better season, I'm taking the guy who caught 90 balls at one point.
Yeah, I think it just speaks to I think you land the same place I do. You're just a little more confident in Juju's health. Eric, where do you weigh on Juju?
Yeah, I think it is Juju catches and targets. I think if Juju is not the guy to lead them in catches and targets for whatever reason, like injury or something, I think it's Sky Moore is actually like the direct backup to Juju. I think MVS has a chance to lead the team in yards, but I don't think you're talking about a guy who in his career has averaged 17 and a half yards a catch. This is not a volume guy. This is a down the field guy. This is a game. There's going to be a lot of games where MVS, in my opinion, has like one catch for 7 yards, but then there are going to be the 4 catches for 150 and a touchdown kind of games. And whereas I think Juju is going to be consistently, if he's top form, 10 targets, 8 catches type of games. And I think if he goes down, it's Sky Moore who's going to be the player that does that kind of stuff. So I guess I do buy Juju. I agree with you though, Soren. If I had to, like, if it was even money, like I would take Juju. If it was even money across the board, so everybody's plus 400 or plus 300, I would take Juju. If it's even money, I'd sell because I do think the injuries and the effectiveness possibly of Sky Moore. Like, I mean, what incentive do the Chiefs have to roll with Juju? Sky Moore shows up to training camp and he's a baller.
Right. No,
they don't have any, right? Like they're not invested in Juju long term.
Let's move on. Travis Kelce is underpaid. Jeff, you get the honors to lead on this one. Buy or sell the fact that Travis Kelce is underpaid?
Well, I mean, it's kind of a push. I mean, he's underpaid based on there are tight ends like David Njoku who are getting a lot of money in this league, that George Kittle is the highest paid player at his position, who he's obviously a better player than. But I think where he's at in his career is I think he's paid appropriately, because guys who play the position the way he does, athletic, I mean, really freakishly athletic for his size, they can go off a cliff in a hurry. I mean, he's not going to be like Antonio Gates out here at 38, posting up people and, trying to get by, even Tony Gonzalez. I think that he signed a team-friendly deal. I think he cares more about winning and legacy now than he does about money. I think he probably could have pushed for more cash when he signed this deal. So I'm going to, I mean, it's kind of like, it's kind of hard because you're kind of nitpicking here. I guess I'll sell. He's not underpaid. He's paid appropriately.
Okay. Eric?
Any tight end that's as effective, like all the tight ends in the top, like 3 or 4 are underpaid because of the productivity. Mark Andrews is underpaid. George Kittle's underpaid. It doesn't mean, like, the structure of the league is such that they're just not going to make that much money because the franchise tag is so much lower than a wide receiver. But like all those guys are underpaid.
I will sell. I don't think he's underpaid because of what I think he's going to do. Eric, you're the one who keeps talking about 3 years or 4 years in a row that his speed is down. Like, at some point he's on the decline. Now, part of that is you pay for what a guy's already done. I understand, like, industry wise, like, I think there's a couple of ways to look at it. If you're looking at it and saying, well, for God's sake, if David Njoku is going to get $13.7 million, how is Travis Kelce appropriately compensated at an average of 14.3? Fair point. Right. But because the Browns have lost their mind and grossly overpay David Njoku, that's stupidity on their part. That should not set the market, even though it will affect the market. It will certainly influence the market. That's asinine. George Kittle's at 15. He struggles to stay on the football field. Kelce's at 14.3, Goddard 14.2, Mark Andrews 14. But I think Travis Kelce, you should expect for a decline coming sometime very soon. And so to be up there at that number, and there's more to it than just the average per year, the actual real cash dollars he's put away based upon signing bonuses and everything, I will sell on it. I think he's appropriately paid for where he's at in his career.
And you could argue when he was younger, he might have been overpaid before he started putting up the big numbers, right? Because he signed an extension, if I remember correctly, early in his career. That was before he started putting up all these numbers.
It was certainly different back then when he was more of a yards after the catch guy. He wasn't like, there was a lot of drops. I remember the Pittsburgh game, like the Cardinals game in 14, we had the fumble, the Pittsburgh game, like there was a lot of drops. he's like basically eliminated all those plays.
Yeah.
He's a very valuable tight end to the point Petro's making. He is getting slower, but he's also making far fewer mistakes. I mean, early in his career, he was getting penalties that were bad. He was dropping a lot of passes, and now, he's, it's hard to attack anything in Travis Kelce's game really, other than that he's getting slower because he's getting older.
Yeah, he's underpaid because he's choosing to be underpaid. I think that's a better way to look at it, because he could certainly have pushed for more. He could have done what Aaron Donald's done, right, and leveraged that into a better deal in his last signing. I think that he wants this team to win games, and he wants to be a part of that more than he wants to be the highest paid player at his position.
You said he was overpaid at some point, like earlier in his career?
I thought maybe. I'm trying to remember when he signed his first big deal.
16
contract.
He
16.
went into 16, and that was his first really.
What did he get?
I would say elite year. That year he signed 5 for $47 million to make the numbers easy to follow to rounding. He had a cap hit of $3 million that year, followed by 5.5, 10, 11. Then they tore that deal up, signed him to a new one going into 20. So I don't know that he's ever been overpaid. I think he kind of, as the contract went up, he kind of was on what would you say, on pace. On
He was appropriately paid.
He was what?
Okay. Appropriately paid then.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Orlando Brown will play this year on the franchise tag. Eric?
So I think they'll get it done.
Why?
He's got the agent. I think that they want the flexibility a little bit. I think that there's because of the way the draft unfolded, they probably want another pass rusher. Like, I don't know if that's earmuffs D Ford. If that's somebody if it's a Brian Burns trade, if it's a Josh Allen trade. But extending Orlando Brown makes that flexibility a lot easier.
So wait a minute, you think he doesn't? You think trading him is a possibility?
I think he signs an extension.
Okay, right. So he doesn't.
I'm selling the idea that he plays the year on the franchise tag.
Right. Okay, I get that. But were you talking about that he would?
I think he's saying it opens up the flexibility, right, to go pursue a trade.
If they extend him, they can drop the number this year down and then possibly go after somebody. To help supplement their pass rush, which I think is required.
But is that enough of an incentive to give him a lot of money to be able to open up the flexibility? I mean, is that the cart before the horse? I mean, should he deserve a big deal before we say what he can do for the team?
Well, I don't think he's deserving of a top of the market left tackle deal. I just think it's whether or not you want to have a left tackle who's a starting caliber player there. That's I think the question that they have to ask.
I'm very intrigued by what Jeff's going to say, but I'm going to sell on this one. I would not give him that kind of money, right? Like I'd be willing to let him play on the franchise tag, and I'd be willing to trade him if he's not. And I would play hardball, and I would think big picture always, because I think if you always think big picture, eventually you clog your team with so much talent, you'll win. Right. You don't ever have to be like, well, we got to do it because this is what we need to actually get it done. And so I'm selling on this, though. I don't know that it'll be the right decision, but I think they traded for him and they feel obligated to get it done. I think he'll play somewhat hardball, but at the end, I think the whole left tackle crap is all about getting paid. And so I think he wants to get paid. I also, and I think he's a smart guy and he knows the injury risks that are there. And I don't think he's going to roll the dice on himself at 16.7. I think he's a smart guy. I also think he knows he's not one of the top left tackles in football. And he knows he's in a very unique position with a team that's trying to win right now. And as much as they very much made a big picture move in the trade for Tyreek Hill, I don't know that they can do that with every decision the way you should. I think they set this ball in motion and they're going to get it done. So I wish I could buy that he was playing on the franchise tag, but I just don't think the Chiefs will have, I don't want to say the backbone, but I just don't think they'll be willing to stand their ground on it. Jeff?
I'm with you. I sell on it. I'm not as crazy about the idea of hiring an agent who's never negotiated an NFL contract in his life.
You think?
This deal. I don't think that gives me a lot of excitement about this being an easy process.
Right.
I don't necessarily buy into what Eric's saying about them thinking more about, hey, we got to get this done to make other moves. I do think that this is an important decision to make in terms of how you one, deal with a player who wants a lot of money, and two, how you set yourself up for the future to be able to make moves. But yeah, I think at some point he's a smart guy, and he came in this league as a third-round pick. You don't have to be the highest paid player at your position to get a hefty raise over what you've been making over the last 4 years. I think he's smart enough to see that. Jamal Brown, who played in the NFL for a long time with the Saints and at OU, is a big mentor of his. I think he'll be able to make him see what he has here with Mahomes and Andy Reid and the culture. He's been very fortunate to have played with two really good franchises over the course of his career, and that matters at some point. And so I do think they'll find a way to get it done. I don't think, I'm going to hold my breath here, knock on wood, I don't think they're going to put him in that $20 million a year range. I think what Cam Robinson got with Jacksonville makes more sense. It'll get done.
Do you think he's like superficial enough where it's one of those where if the quoted APY is a certain way, that because
most guys are.
Yeah, I could see it as one of those where the numbers for this year are lower. He gets a decent amount of money up front, but they can get out from under it relatively quick. There's not a lot of guarantees there, because I think that the issue that the Chiefs probably see is, look, if we let go of Orlando, it's going to be Joe Thuney, and we have to find a left tackle. And that was the biggest reason why they traded for him in the first place, which was if we draft a guy at 29 or whatever, 31 it was the year before, there's no guarantee that guy's going to be playable, right? Whereas now if you, extend him but give yourself some outs that are inexpensive, then you can sort of find his replacement while that's happening. I don't know. If it's nominally $20 million a year, but morally like $15 million a year, that's probably fine.
Well, isn't this where the love affair with Patrick Mahomes should come into play? Because if your quarterback and your best friend and your wedding guy is taking a discount, shouldn't you be able to take a discount as well?
I mean, maybe, but if he's the best man of any valor, he spent money on that wedding. He's got to recoup it.
Yeah. Irish Mac, Orlando Brown topic always makes me cringe. By the way, if you're catching us via the podcast,
imagine watching him against Myles Garrett.
Oh God. We stream live 9 p.m. on Tuesdays on the Twitch, and you can be a part of it on Twitch, YouTube, and I always forget which one. Facebook are the ones that you can comment in here. That's what we're talking about. If you're catching us on the podcast, some of the comments here in the chat room. By the way, also, it don't cost you nothing to give us some likes and love. So if you're a fan of the podcast, please do that. Hit that like button, the love button, retweet our stuff, send it out to your friends, make them listeners. We would appreciate it very much. Let's move to the defensive line. Chiefs D-line ranks higher than 16 in sacks. They rank 29th as a team. Or do you want this to be just the defense or the D-line itself?
I think it's defense.
Okay. Okay, so Chiefs.
We can factor the defensive line into that, sure.
Yeah, I mean, which is part of it. So they ranked 29th. Crap! Now screwed up our score sheet here. The thing that I worry about on this is the fact that. The reason to take them to move up is because they had 31 sacks last year, and to go to 16, they only need 8 more to get to 39, right? Like to get up to the top, 55 for the Steelers was number 1, but then it's a faster decline until then you kind of hit a spot where they're in the middle, and you don't really get that far behind when you're in the later one. Like from what is it here? Where's Carolina there? 15. And 16 are at 39, then 38, 36, 36, 35, 35, 34, 34, 34, 33, 33, 32, 32. Chiefs at 31 last year. Like the devil's in the details. They just need a handful of sacks here and there. And I think I got 2 chances. I'm going to buy that they're going to be in the top 16. One, because I think that Steve Spagnuolo does a pretty good job at bouncing back. I think he can create pressure. I think Karlaftis over Ingram is an upgrade. I expect Chris Jones to bounce back because I think Chris Jones is going to be looking to get paid the year ahead. So I think he sees this as a negotiating ploy. So I think you're going to get the best of Chris Jones. I like the chances of them getting some coverage and being able to get more aggressive on some of the blitz schemes up front. New defensive line coach, new ideas. I think maybe that gets everybody playing on their best. This is clearly a prove-it year for Frank Clark. There's a lot of incentive for guys to play better, but I think I get a second chance at this one. Like, again, if the defense sucks, they're on the field a lot, and it becomes a shootout, and there's a lot more opportunities to get after the quarterback, right? Like, you know, the pass rush success rate may not be top 16, but the quantity of sacks may be there. So I think I've got two chances to hit on this if I buy it. So I'm going to buy that they will rank higher than 16th in sacks. Jeff?
I'm buying not because I believe in the defensive line as much, but I do believe that they're going to mix up coverages more, and they're going to create more opportunities for sacks, either through coverage or through blitzing. I think there'll be a more aggressive defense when it comes to blitzing this year. They have to be. I don't think you can push all your chips in and just say, well, Ingram out, Karlaftis in, we're going to get it going again. I just think Frank Clark is that much of an issue on the other side from Karlaftis, and you don't have a great depth of rotation there. And so I just don't see where you're going to get those kind of numbers from your defensive line, which they traditionally have tried to do. But I do like the idea of saying, let's have more versatility. Let's have more flexibility. Let's have more guys who can move around. I mean, I could see, Justin Reed rushing. Blitzing the Chanel kid playing a factor. Willie Gay, who's a speedy guy coming from different. I think they're going to see a lot of guys coming from different areas that will boost those totals. And you're right, because you only need to get 8 or 9 more sacks out of it. I think that's going to make a difference. But I agree. I think I forget who said it over here a second ago about pressure versus sacks. I think pressure is way more important than getting to the quarterback, but they weren't pressuring at a great rate either last year.
Yeah. No, Eric, where are you at?
I'm actually selling. Here's the reason why. I think their schedule is harder than last year. And so I think that there will be certain games where they're coming from behind, right? And so like the other team's running the ball. I also think that there's a chance that I just think that there's less volume on the defensive side of the ball for them to get to the passer. And, until they get somebody opposite Karlaftis on the edge, like I don't see it yet. I like Karlaftis, but he's going to take time. Jones is good, but we've talked about this on the show. Like we need to see more out of Jones, right? As a player. So I think it's probably going to be a little bit less than what people want.
All right. Let's go. Next up, the defense will be better without Tyrann Mathieu. Jeff, yes or no? Better. And how do you want to define better?
Better. Yeah. I would say better in terms of where they were when he first showed up the first couple of years. Tyrann Mathieu was a big part of their success on defense, obviously. His ability to move around, his instincts. I don't know if that player exists in this defense right now. That person may evolve. That may end up being Justin Reed. Juan Thornhill may take a huge step forward. The kid they drafted, maybe he could be that guy. I'm selling right now. I'm not sold on them being a better defense. I know he didn't play great last year. I know that everybody makes fun of the hands going up all the time after big plays were happening. But I also feel like they had to use him differently than they did back when they were in 2019, 2020, where he was more of a chess piece, moving around, really in sync with Spagnuolo. I think he had to do a lot more things to offset Dan Sorensen, to offset whatever concerns Spagnuolo had with Juan Thornhill. And he just wasn't in the mix as much. So I think he'll have a bounce back year in New Orleans. But I think this defense has to prove that those young guys out there, I just said they'll be better in coverage, but I think they have to show that level of instinctiveness and playmaking. Someone has to create that for them.
Eric?
I'll buy it. I think that the defense was too dependent on him the last 2 years. And I thought he played as well as he played in 19. I thought in 20 and 21, it wasn't as good. And so much like with Tyreek Hill on the offensive side of the ball, I think reevaluating the composition of the team will do wonders for them. Like, I think coaches can get lazy when they have players like Hill and Mathieu.
Okay. All right. You know what? This is a difficult one for me because I am you. So you're wait a minute. Where did you come down, Eric? You were doing what?
I'm buying that they're going to be better this year.
I think this is difficult because how do you define it? Right. That to me is the tough one. They were, and it's very wide open to interpretation. I can see three of us, with different. Too bad there's not a third option because I think all three of us could claim victory at the end of this one. Eighth in points allowed last year. If we're just talking about last year, eighth in points allowed, 27th in yards allowed. Like they could be 12th in points allowed and 12th in yards allowed, and you could be screaming that they're worse, and you can be screaming that they're better, right? With what you want to do. I think to me, I'm probably see. I think this is another one.
Tough.
It is very tough but I'm going to buy it. I'm going to buy the personnel decisions. I'm going to buy that they got better at corner. They're going to be better yardage wise. I don't know that they'll be a whole lot better points wise, but I think they could be. But I do think McDuffie helps a lot. I like the size and strength, and I think they're going to beat some people up. They're going to fly around and hit some people. I think they're going to create more turnovers. Turnovers are an immediate end to a drive. Statistically, that'll help them yardage wise. May even hurt the offense because they don't have, they're not catching punts only or kickoffs to go back the other way. I'm going to buy it begrudgingly. I don't love it because I think it's going to be hard to define it. But I do think, in the second half, you're going to see a lot of young physical football players, if they stay healthy, a lot of young physical football players flying around. And I'm optimistic that the secondary overall, no, I don't see the Swiss Army knife chess piece that Tyrann Mathieu is to plug into this, but I don't think they're trying to play that way. I think they're trying to punish some people, and I think they're going to do it. I think they're going to hit some people. The Cincinnati safety is a hitter. The kid from the Texans, Reed, is a hitter. I think Juan Thornhill is a hitter. I think they're going to have some people that are knocking some people around, and so I'm going to buy it. I'm going to basically put faith in Brett Veach that the personnel decisions were good ones, and the overall depth on this defense is significantly better. This is Eric Bieniemy's final season with the Chiefs. Where are we at? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. We're at Eric. You get a lead off on this one.
I'm buying it. I think that there's a number of different ways this bet hits, right? Like he gets a head coaching job in the NFL. He gets a head coaching job at the college level. He moves on and becomes a play calling offensive coordinator for another team. They fire. I mean, I don't think they'll fire him because I think that, everybody I've talked to in the building says that he's a good citizen of the team, so I don't see him getting fired, but there's a number of different ways Eric Bieniemy moves on from Kansas City this year.
I buy it because I cannot find the scenario where he stays.
No.
Right? He's either first of all, I think he has been fantastic. Of course, minute amount of time they led him to the mic. He's been fantastic in what he said. I think he's every year, he was really rough on the mic, which I think if you're rough on the mic, you're rough in an interview. And I think the better he's getting on the mic in press conferences, the better he's getting in an interview, right? You're answering questions. If you're not any good in the press conference, I don't know why any interview would have gone well with an owner, right? If he can't handle I channeled my inner Jeff Chadiha. I quoted you about how, the Packers is almost like a college town, right? And how the coverage goes there. Well, Kansas City can't be but about third or fourth worst, right?
Yeah.
Like Packers, maybe the Broncos, just because that town is so Bronco crazy. Maybe Jacksonville because it's such a small market, but then it has to be Kansas City. He struggled early on, but now he's handling it really well. And I think he's found kind of where he fits. And so I think he either has success, interviews better, and gets a job, or it doesn't work and he's fired. I think the Chiefs have gone as far as they need to go with him. And I think they've got Matt Nagy sitting there. And Patrick Mahomes is going to ultimately make this decision if whether or not he's back. And I think at this point it's been long enough. I don't see some 10-year run with Eric Bieniemy. I just don't see the scenario where he's back. he's got to make that move, and I think the Chiefs will have to make a move as well, one way or another. He's either good enough to get a better job, or he's not good enough to be kept. There's no in between. Jeff?
Yeah, I don't see him getting fired just because Andy Reid, God, you have to go back 15 years to find the last time he got rid of a coach. But I think that probably part of the negotiation, part of the discussion during that period when we were trying to figure out what was going to happen with him, probably was trying to figure out, okay, what do you want to do? And so I think it's more of a rebranding time for him. And you've mentioned Marvin Lewis, which I think is a really good comp as far as somebody who thought he was going to get a job after he had a record-breaking year as the Ravens defensive coordinator, didn't get one, and went to the Redskins at the time, and worked there for a year, and then got the Bengals job, and then blew up. That route should be something Eric Bieniemy is thinking about. I've said college is something he should be thinking about, looking at what happened to Mel Tucker, who coached at his alma mater, got the Michigan State job. I guarantee you Mel Tucker will be on the radar of owners in the next 5 years looking for NFL coaching candidates. David Shaw has been at Stanford forever, has always been rumored to be somebody who owners would love to hire, would certainly be a favorite candidate for jobs. And so I just think it's just time for him to find another way to go about this. He's gotten the most. He's done everything he can do in Kansas City with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. He won a championship, coached an MVP quarterback, coached a top-ranked offense, a record-breaking offense, did everything. So yeah, it's probably time to go someplace else after this year, no matter what happens, how it plays out, to go to the next chapter of his career.
Yeah, like Ron Rivera had a similar thing, and they ended up like letting him go with the Bears, and he had to go to San Diego for a couple of years before he became the coach of the Panthers. Like that's, that is, not unprecedented for sure.
So you're buying, Jeff.
I'm buying.
This is the last year. Okay. All right. The Chiefs will win their 7th straight AFC West title. That comes down to me. This is tough. This is really tough because I'm feeling this is kind of more of a Ravens-like season, and maybe that winning a championship that's not your year type of year if they are going to have the ultimate success. The field is tough. The schedule is tough. Right. So like I would no bet this if I got to see. I will not be betting the Chiefs to win the AFC West because the odds there isn't the return there. But I will say this: if I've got to pick somebody, right, and objects in motions tend to stay in motion. Like when you have a streak, you either ride the streak or you get the hell out of the way. So I would get the hell out of the way and not play this. I think the value is on the Denver Broncos, as I recall from the numbers that I've heard Eric talk about on what the betting line is, because I think those 3 games that are different are a huge advantage for the Denver Broncos. And I think they're going to be pretty damn good. But on this, I'll buy it because, they've owned it. And until you beat the man, you can't be the man. And so they've been the man. So I will buy that they win it, partially because I know Jeff is going to sell on it.
Right. We can skip over Jeff here.
That's right.
No.
Sell. Okay, Eric. Yeah. Why are you buying? Let's see. Yeah. Jeff, no. What do you got, Jeff?
I'm selling. I think the Chiefs will be in the mix, but I just think it's a crowded field. I think you mentioned Denver's weaker schedule is a big factor here. I just think it's more like when you look at the Patriots' run in the AFC East for so many years, there was so much incompetence around them. But there were years they didn't win the AFC East. There was here, and the Dolphins snuck up and got one on them.
Yeah, that's it. Here ended the lesson. That was the only one.
Yeah. And then the teams went back to being stupid. I think these teams in the AFC West have done a pretty good job of building talent.
Brady got hurt. Let's point out Brady went down that year and didn't play in 15 games.
That's the year he went down? Hmm? That was? Oh, wow.
Yeah, Matt Castle was the quarterback, and they missed the playoffs with 11 wins.
And they won Jets won the last game, right? I mean, the Dolphins, the Jets. It was the
Jets went 9-7 with Favre and didn't make the playoffs. And the Dolphins went 11-5 with
Pennington.
The guy Favre replaced, Pennington.
Yeah, and he beat the Jets to win the AFC East. Mm-hmm. I just think field is super crowded. I think the schedule is a bear at the start of the year, which is a really scary thing. That I don't think they're going to start you 3-4 again, but there are going to be some tough games in there, and so they're not going to have the cushion they've had of being able to rely on. When you see the Raiders, when you see the Chargers, see the Broncos, you're going to get wins. I just think they're probably going to end up around 10-7, and somebody else is going to be 11-6.
All right. So you're selling, and Eric, you of course are buying.
My thing is.
Am I correct?
Yeah, but I'm not going over season win total for them. I'm not as far as prices are concerned, I'm not betting on them to make the playoffs. I'm not betting on them to go over their win total. I actually agree. I think 10-7 is probably the most likely record for this team, but I think 10-7 wins this division. Unless the Raiders completely stink and every team sweeps them, which I think is possible. Do we really see a 12 or 11 win team in this division if it's not the Chiefs?
Yeah, I do. Because that's why
It's the Broncos.
Betting totals are never in the NFL are never 1.5, and they're never 15.5, right? Because the math of it is that you will drag down, but somebody always wins 14. Somebody wins, or a 13 or a 12, relatively speaking. There's always somebody that way out distances it. And this is smaller. This isn't a 32-team field, but we're talking about the best of the best, which is usually 7 or 8 teams that have the 10 pluses. And out of there, and even some of them that are in the middle of the pack, schedule smiles and somebody goes. My gut tells me the Broncos having the schedule smile on them is the most likely path to somebody having a really good record because they have the quarterback, they have the personnel, and I think they've got the easiest path. But whether it's them or the Chargers or the Chiefs, the schedule and health will smile on somebody, and somebody
and health was a big. So one of the things that's really irritating about them not winning the Super Bowl last year was they had good health last year. They, for the most part, the schedule laid down for them when they were 3-4. Then they got the 3 home games in a row. They had things lay out nicely for them, and they still couldn't take advantage and win the they were a 2 seed, and the 1 seed lost in division. You got to host the AFC title game as a 2 seed. They got a lot of fortuitous bounces there. I think at price, which is about 150 to 170, I will bet the Chiefs for this. I don't think it's even money. I think I would probably bet it down to 125 plus 125. So I don't think it's more than 50%, but at current market prices, I will buy the Chiefs to win the AFC West.
All right, that brings us to our last category, and I've already written sell, as Jeff will lead us off in this category. If you don't have
You've written sell for me?
Yeah, I wrote sell for you.
Yeah.
If you don't have them winning the AFC West, you certainly don't have them winning the AFC.
Bills. Yeah. I for the same reasons. Again, the Chiefs will be in the mix because they have a great quarterback and have a great coach. And they've been in the mix since Andy Reid showed up here. I just feel like the Buffalo Bills are the best team in the AFC, and there's just too many other teams out there that are problematic.
Yeah. Eric?
Yeah, the Bills are the favorite. They should be. That doesn't mean they're going to win it. And as you said, Petro, the price is 3-1. So talking about 25% chance, but that's a bigger chance than the Chiefs have.
But by how much? If the Bills are 25%,
Chiefs are 20.
Okay.
It's not that far. I mean, the Bills are really, in my opinion, and
that's to get to the Super Bowl, right? Not to win it.
Yeah, not to win. I think, yeah. The Chiefs are probably 10% to win the Super Bowl this year, 20% to make it. I think Buffalo's more 25 and 14. Right.
See, I would say if you're 10% to win it, I think the AFC is so thick. You're more 10% to win it and 14% to get there.
Yeah, I guess. But if you're against Tampa or you're against Green Bay, are you favored?
Yes, I think if you've survived I think whoever survives the AFC will be favored.
Okay. I mean, the betting markets have them at 10-1, which is about 9%. But I think I think the tricky thing here is if you're a Buffalo Bills fan, I think after this season, you're going to really wish you would have won one of the first 2 because this is the year where the target's on the back.
They're the Rams this year.
Yeah, exactly. And good on the Rams for winning that damn thing, right?
Yeah. They're the Rams. Okay, yeah, they're the Rams because the Rams did get there in 2018, but really didn't sniff it after that. The Bills have knocked on the door the last 2 years and have not been.
I know somebody who walked by the Bills locker room after the Chiefs game and said this team is down. They saw that thing. They were the Bills are the best team in the league last year. Let's be honest. They didn't play as well as the Chiefs in the playoff game. The Chiefs ended up beating them, but if you run that game back at Arrowhead 100 times, they win that game more than 50 times, I think. So, and then I think if the Bills win, I think they beat Cincinnati. They're 7-point favorites against Cincinnati at home, and they're favored against the Rams in the Super Bowl. All this is to say that I'm really happy the Chiefs won 19, right? Because a lot of the moves that they're making relative to what the Bills. So the Chiefs, having the Super Bowl in their back pocket, can trade Tyreek Hill. The Bills, without a Super Bowl in their back pocket, push chips in for Von Miller, buy more Stephon Diggs, et cetera, et cetera. And I think 2 years from now, the Bills, if they don't win a Super Bowl, are really going to look back and be like, man, we missed it. And the Chiefs are going to think, thank God we won the one in 19 because we were able to regroup and win another couple, in the next 5 years or so. Like that to me is like the sting, if you're Buffalo, of losing the last 2 games in Arrowhead in the playoffs.
Yeah. All right. I am selling as well, just off the math. But I don't think, like we can line it up right now. As soon as the season starts and injuries start piling up, I don't think anybody in the AFC, the Bills may be the favorite, but again, I think it's marginal at best. And I think, all the teams, all the top teams are, Justin Herbert, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Russell Westbrook. They're all a quarterback injury away from being out of the mix, right? No one's going without their quarterback. We're not seeing Jeff Hostetler lead anybody into the Super Bowl out of the AFC this year. You're going to have your big boy healthy, and he's going to have to be slinging it. But I think it is so competitive that if you bought anybody, like, would you bet the Bills right now at even money? No. Would you bet the Bills?
I wouldn't bet them at their current price. I think they're too expensive now. I think the Chiefs are almost too expensive now.
Yeah, I think first of all, this is a year that you're picking a long shot that you think no one's looking at that's going to come from off the pack, or you're not betting anybody to win the championship.
You're betting the other teams in the AFC North because
or you're finding the NFC team that you think is going to have that 99 Rams like come together, right? If you can figure that out, you're finding that team, like you're finding somebody 25-1 or longer, which I don't like to bet anybody really lower than 20-1 to win the Super Bowl anyway, but 25-1 or longer, or you're staying away from it. But but so again, I'm selling it, but I think the concept of the Chiefs can't win this, or like this is somehow some year that it's an impossibility, or it would be an incredible story. It's not. They're plenty good enough. They make good decisions this year for the long run. And I think that they just need one break or two. And, they don't need 5. They just need 1 or 2, which everybody needs. And I think it's negligible, the difference between them and the Bills. The concept of the fact that I'm fine with the Bills being the favorite, but it's so marginal that I think too much is being made of Bills. There's Chiefs fatigue right now. Yep. Right? Like, people are tired of seeing the Chiefs at number 1, and they're being downgraded because they want to see somebody different, and they want to be the guy who called for somebody different. And now the Bills are the unanimous choice for most of those people. And
which, by the way, is why Patrick can win the MVPs, because people are like, forget the Chiefs right now.
Take us back to the beginning. Exactly right. All right, that's going to do it. Our buy and sell edition here of Red, Gold, and Bold. Remember, if you're catching us via the podcast, we stream live 9:00 on Tuesday, 9 p.m. Central. You can catch us on the Twitch, the YouTube, and the Facebook. Then you can comment in the chat room. Also get us on Twitter. And, of course, we always appreciate those likes, loves. Those are great for us. We appreciate it. Don't cost you nothing. So go ahead and hit that like button, the love button. Retweet when we send things out. If you let your friends know about the podcast, we would appreciate it. So for Jeff Chadiha from the NFL Network and NFL.com, Eric Eager from Pro Football Focus and his childhood bedroom back in Minnesota, I'm Soren Petro from Sports Radio 810 WHP saying thank you very much for joining us here on Red, Gold, and Bold.